This time around, I want to talk about prudence. And it's one of those words. I was just having a conversation in my community about the idea of efficacy because efficiency comes up, right? And people talk about efficiency. And then someone started getting the idea of effectiveness. I'm like, those two words combined kind of lead to efficacy. And we don't hear the word efficacy very often. We hear effective, we hear efficient. We don't hear efficacious or efficacy because it just is a word that I think a lot of people have a hard time figuring out what it is or whatever. And I wonder if the same thing happens with prudent. I mean, the most often I've heard that word, other than, me digging into it a bit, is remember when Dana Carvey used to do the impression of George H.W. Bush, where he would do, wouldn't be prudent at this juncture.
Wouldn't be prudent. Yep.
And I think then Bush would say
I always
that.
think of that too. Yeah.
And that's the kind of the buzzword, the thing that I think of when that happens. So like when you think of prudence, what do you think of, other than the song Dear Prudence as well? Because there's also that.
You think of a popular, somewhat popular girl's name in the late 1800s. But I always think of prudence as kind of moral governance, as it were. Maybe not moral governance. Maybe that's the wrong term. But to avoid embarrassment, to avoid wrongdoing, to avoid I always think of prudence as kind of getting ahead of a problem, as it were.
Right.
If that makes sense.
It does. I can give you so what's interesting is that we're circling around the origins of it. So in the mid 14th century, prudence is defined as intelligence, discretion, foresight, practical wisdom to see what is suitable or profitable. So we're saying that, but it's interesting because it's there's a vastness to that, I think, that can live within that word, right?
Right. And like most of English, I think it has taken on kind of different meanings, softened meanings. It's been diluted since that time, as it were, right? Or I wouldn't necessarily dilute it as much as broadened. Because this is the way that language works, right? Back before, say, 1971, bad was bad. But now we know bad
sick,
could be good.
Sick.
Yeah.
Right?
Sick,
like this is sick, right? Like,
yeah.
Or what's a word that we hear a lot that around, cap, which means like no cap. I'm like, what? No lying.
No cap.
Okay. So where did the cap come from? Right? Like, I can understand.
Exactly.
I can understand. So it is interesting. By the way, the other thing about when we talk about those 4 cardinal virtues, right? So when we're going to go back down to Plato and all of that stuff, prudence, justice, fortitude, and temperance are the 4.
Temperance.
But prudence, as described in this, is the ability to discern the true good. So this goes back to your moral component in every circumstance and to choose the right means of achieving it. See, this is why I brought it up in Congress with efficiency and effectiveness, right? Because we get efficiency, people go, oh, so just to do something fast.
Yeah.
No. Or to do something. Or to be effective. Right. But but that's gotten lost in the equation, right? Like that's gotten lost. Effectiveness, which by the way, I think is fine. It's just a lot of people, when they look at effectiveness on its own, and again, this is just through my conversations, what I see generally is they go, oh, effectiveness is slower. So therefore, you know what I mean? Like to be effective, there is this slowness to it, at least at the beginning, which is very true. Like if you're going to be effective at something, you're not going to do it very quickly initially. But the more you do something, you will become more effective at it, provided that you put forth effort, all of those elements to it. So I think prudence falls into the same. You can't, I think prudence is obviously something that you garner over time. It's wisdom, right? So it's not something that you can, and I wonder if, I know that Ryan Holiday's written about the virtues and all of that stuff, but I wonder if prudence, because it requires more, like I said, the true good to discern the true good in every circumstance and to choose the right means of achieving it. There's a lot in there that I think people can gloss over.
Well, and, that doesn't leave much room for grace now, does it? As
See,
it
that's the but you're right.
Right.
Like, and
Right, right.
it is. It's funny. Did you see the Ryan Holiday video where he responded to Ivana Trump, Ivana,
Uh,
the daughter,
right.
who said that
Ivanka.
admires the stoic lifestyle and tries to live in a stoic fashion. And he and so that's the thing, is that he kind of went off, right? Which,
Yeah.
again, not terribly stoic if you wanted to be, if you wanted to, but what I took away from that video, and by the way, if you, well, I'll link to it in the show notes, because I'll
Yeah,
link to
yeah,
the
'cause
response.
I haven't
But,
seen it.
but
I am aware of the outline of the interaction. How about that?
right, the thing that I always look at is the response, or the reaction in this case, to it, where of course all the people that
Mhm.
love to be on their high horse about stoicism, like, well, this isn't very stoic of you, and oh, look, you're not practicing what you preach. but but Ryan has never, and I think anyone who actually is serious about stoicism has never said that they get it right. There are moments where, I mean, there is aspirational components to it, right? And I think that unfortunately, when you hear a term like prudence, effectiveness, courage, all of these things, because there's layers to it, um, the goal, I think, is to strive for that more than not strive for it. And if you don't hit it, then you give yourself grace in the process.
Yeah, yeah, sure,
Right,
sure.
right.
But at the right. But at the same time, I I wanna be, careful and cautious with uh, the idea that there is one right way, one right path, one right method, one right, because that is not true of a lot of things. That is
No.
not true of many things. In fact, with most things, there might be multiple ways to solve a problem.
Hmm.
There might be many right ways. There might be, um, but the idea, right? I think with prudence is, with anything that you approach, if it is something that requires a solution, that you try to at least envision or foresee um the ways in which it could go wrong, the ways in which it could break, and you try to, once again, get ahead of that, right? You
Right.
get ahead of whatever the problem is that is going to disrupt or otherwise undo your solution.
Well, here's a good example. This is very small, but I'm going to use it in the instance of what we of our recording today. So we started later than we normally would, because
Mhm.
I was working on dinner prep, which I decided to do early in the day, because, as you know, and as anyone who's listened to me for a long time knows, my brain is not very good in the mornings. It just is not. And I'm not going to, I'm doing things like decaf coffee in the morning for that first 90 minutes. So that way I'm not, like, burning cortisol. Like, I pay attention to some of that stuff. And,
Mhm.
and so I finished up my morning community focus fix session, or those co-working sessions that we have. And then I was supposed to have a conversation with someone, but they didn't turn up, and so on and so forth. But anyway, so I'm like, well, this is the time for me to do the prep for the dinner. So later, when I do need to cook the dinner, and I'm in a better state of being able to do work, I don't have to spend as much time on that dinner. So in that moment, I look at that as a prudent choice. Now, then all of a sudden I get caught up in it, and I notice, I'm going to be late for Patrick's and my conversation. So again, what's the prudent thing to do? Well, the prudent thing to do is I know this is going to happen. So I am going to, and I'm making a choice. And also the circumstances, again, the rights, like, Patrick's not going to go, well, hold on, dude. Like, I can be forthright and say, hey, got caught up in prepping sides. I'm going to be a little bit late. You're like, that's fine. No, what? If I didn't contact you, that would not have been prudent, right? In fact, and
Mm.
the amount of communication I give you is prudent based on our relationship. So what I'm trying to say here is that there's echoes of this, all of these things. In fact, pretty much every topic that we've discussed in our 3 seasons of doing this, it permeates. And when you look back, you're like, okay, that was prudent, and that was prudent. Oh, that wasn't prudent. Okay, well, what could I have been more prudent? Could I have been more graceful? Could I have been more gracious? Could I have been more human in that moment? And I think that's what I love about when we dive into specific words, is we can dissect them and also give ourselves grace when we're not living up to them, only through the analysis of them. And it's for those that are listening too, because they, I was saying to you via text, I'm like, these episodes that we do, we've got people who used to listen to Mike's on Mike's when I was doing with Michael Schechter, and all of those.
And I'd come on as a guest on there.
Yeah. And you and I have now been doing this for a couple of years now, and they're almost going on 3 years. And it's those conversations, because they're reflections, right? They're reflective, and they're also, and so it gets you thinking about these things. And I think that what I want to do, and what I try to do, which I think is prudent, is to shine spotlights on these terms that we gloss over, or that we are practicing in some way, shape, or form, but maybe need to take a closer look at. Right?
Yeah. Well, or just, how, what I like about doing these things actually is, and like you said, picking a specific word, is that we don't oftentimes really take a moment to think about the language that we use, to think about what that word means, what its origin was, how that is shaped over time, and more specifically, how might we apply it today, right?
Yeah.
Prudence is, I don't think, a word that most people use on a daily basis.
No.
This is not a common word, especially in 2026. Perhaps it was more so, back in the industrial age, but but it is the idea of, let's take some time out to examine just this one thing and this one word and how it applies to this idea or these ideas, and dissect it a little bit, and to think about it a little bit. And I actually think it works best, because here is a particular word. Oftentimes I will, we have a list of the kind of topics, mainly words, that we're going to explore. By the way, folks, this is a little bit about how we make the sausage here at Vardy and Rhone.
Yeah.
And so at Vardy and Rhone, we have a list, a shared Apple Note, where there is a list of words, and every episode is really focusing on just that one word, you see. That's not necessarily, I think, how originally we kind of envisioned doing this podcast, or these guest spots, but I think it's kind of the way it worked out, that like, oh, okay.
Usually what we would do is we would focus on a topic, but we would,
right.
Actually, what our conversations would do, I think, is we would have a conversation, and then it would go deeper into one particular area, one topic. But to get there, you and I can have a conversation for hours, and then get there, and then spend time
about all sorts of
and then we spend time, and then we're like, oh, now we're in the meat of this is the thing that we warmed up to get to. So really, what the words are designed to do is to go, okay, here's a catalyst. We might get there quicker, right? And that's pretty much the crux of it.
Exactly.
Right?
But the other nice thing is that, like, so sometimes ahead of time, I'll look at the list. I'll look at, like, oh, what is this week's topic? What are we going to do? And I'll look at it, and I'll think about it for a bit, and I'll think about it for a bit more. And, I'll spend several days and maybe even a couple of weeks thinking about that word, that topic, how to apply it, this, that, and the other. And there have been times, Mike can tell you, where I've walked in and said, yeah, you know what? I really want to talk about this word because
Hmm.
this other one that's on the list, and we need to switch the list around because this one I actually have thought about, and something came up this week, and it applies well, and blah 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 blah. But
It's like
this particular word, all
it's like a meal plan. We have a
right,
default,
exactly,
and then we're like, we don't really
all
feel like eating that today, so we're going to eat this instead. But we
right,
might come back to that
exactly,
word. Yeah, 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 yeah.
exactly. But this one particular word is one of those times where I didn't really think about it at all. I didn't
Yeah.
even really look at it. I kind of forgot what was coming up this week. And it wasn't until Mike texted me about a half hour ago just to make sure that I was on board and, was running on time and that sort of thing. Um, that the word even came up. Right. And, you know, and right there in that action was the topic. Right.
Yeah.
Mike was being prudent by checking in with me to make sure that our scheduled call was still going to happen on time, or if I needed to move it a bit, or if I needed to plan for another day, because we record these ahead of time,
Mm.
far enough ahead that we can make those changes. All of that is to say that, huh? Well, isn't that prudent that Mike sent me a text? Um, and so, yeah, I think this is the way that we apply these words on a regular basis and don't necessarily think about it. We don't call it that, but, but it is kind of that thing. Hey, checking to see if all the participants in a meeting are going to be able to make it there on time, a half hour before the meeting, just
Hmm.
so nobody's time is wasted. If things need to adjust, they can. Being prudent is actually getting your oil changed, right? That's being
Oh,
prudent,
yeah.
right?
You've got me
You know?
thinking now. You've got me thinking now because I've been playing. Well, a couple things. Number one, um, when it comes to artificial intelligence,
Yeah.
I think I wonder if applied judiciously, prudently,
Mhm.
will AI allow us to be more prudent in situations that require it. So, for example, there are people that, like you brought up the meeting situation, right? So,
Mhm.
if and or when uh, you've got generative AI helping you with some behind the scenes stuff,
Mhm.
and this is a two-parter here, and you know that stuff's being taken care of, then you as the person can then be more prudent around activities that only a human really should be doing. So, for example,
Yeah.
hey everybody. Now, the interesting thing is I think what's happening already is that they're getting AI to do the things that a human should do. They're getting AI to replace everything, as opposed to like saying, okay, well, a human, like I was talking about this with a couple of friends, and we were talking about support, right? Like whenever you log into like if you're on a website and you see the little speech bubble in the bottom corner, whether it's intercom or one of these other tools, AI is
Mhm.
answering that. In fact,
Oh, yeah.
But AI would only initially be used as a filter before you got to a person. Now that's not happening. You're not even good luck.
Oh, yeah.
Good luck getting to a person. But
Yeah.
there's back to one of the other things we've discussed: nuance. It can't be filtered in a way that AI can necessarily understand. But if you are prudent with your use of it, in more ways than one, you can say, okay, you know what, we're getting, and some are getting there. Okay, well, this thing AI can't handle. We're gonna filter it off to this. Or in the case of my own community, we did set up workflows that said, hey, you know what, there's this event coming up. Let's make sure you're at it. And what was
Mhm.
happening is because the community is small, so that's one thing. But
Mhm.
secondly, because of the vibe of the community, when those automated messages went out, it diluted the quality of the experience, I believe.
Of
And I heard
course.
this.
Of
And so
course.
I'm like,
Yeah.
so I said, and I mean, again, we all fall victim to this. Oh, there's this new shiny thing that it can do. Let's get it to do this so I can do something else. But then I recognized, okay, that thing that I'm getting it to do it's actually not helping. It's hurting. So it would be prudent for me to take that over and just not have those automations. Maybe not even have them go out at all. But then what do I need to have it do something else so I could do that thing if I chose to do it, right? Like we're actually seeing that with using like my assistant Sarah and I. She's shifting more towards community interaction than administrative work, because guess what can do the administrative work without fuss or muss in a lot of ways?
AI,
Right. Whereas like reaching out to somebody who we haven't seen on a focus fix call for a while, that's something that we don't want to have AI necessarily do.
No,
right.
you want a personal message, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so to me, I think that I wonder if, and this is maybe your thoughts around this, of if with all new technology, there's that period of adoption and then there's the period of adapting, right? I wonder if Prudence will benefit from it's certainly not necessarily going to be benefiting from the adoption, but from the adapting, I think it might.
From the adapting, I definitely think it will. And I think also from the, from the understanding. I actually wrote a thing about this on my blog, which we can link to in the show notes. It's called Thoughts on AI and the Known Unknowns, right? And one of the things I've been thinking about lately, don't worry, we will get back to Prudence. Just let me run off on my little tangent here. So I've been spending an inordinate amount of time over the past couple of months thinking about yawns.
Like yawning?
Like yawning, yes, yawns.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, as you do, I mean, you're walking, you're taking a shower, and while you're soaping up and everything, your mind just drifts and you start thinking about yawning. Of course, it happens to everybody, right?
Yeah. It would be imprudent of us not to talk about this at this juncture.
Well, exactly. No, here's the thing. Here's the interesting thing. Do you know that there is no scientific consensus on yawning, on why we do it?
I think I heard that somewhere, and it's not just
that nobody.
It's not just humans.
Nobody
either.
really knows.
It's everything. It's animals. It's
mammals. Most mammals yawn. Yes.
Yeah.
But we all appear to yawn for different reasons. Like some mammals yawn for reasons that humans do not yawn. But also, like, we don't really even know why humans yawn.
Here's a question: How many people? Yeah, people that are listening right now. How many of you have either considered yawning or have already yawned while Patrick has been talking about it?
This is another thing that it baffles scientists, is we don't know why it's contagious, i.e. if you see someone yawn, you tend to yawn within a few seconds to minutes, or why even the mention of a yawn, even reading about yawning, causes you to need to yawn. Right?
Sorry, I just yawned, everybody.
Of course. Right? Like, this is a complete mystery, right? And here's the wonderful thing. This is what gives me such comfort when I think about AI. So wonderful. AI doesn't know why we yawn either. If you ask, it might hallucinate and make up reasons. It may take, the most commonly batted around reason and spit you back, like, this is the reason, but it's lying. It is hallucinating. It doesn't know. And I know it doesn't know. You know how I know it doesn't know?
Because you asked it.
No, because we don't know.
Well, there's that too.
AI can only ever know what we know.
You're right. It's funny. It's funny, by the way, as you're doing this, I didn't know fetuses yawned too.
Sure. Of course.
So you're right. It's both. I asked Claude and GPT because I have both. I just play with both. Both gave the very similar. Actually, Claude's was very short, but it said it just poses the theories. That's all it says. Like, it's not fully understood. So what's interesting, oh, this is fascinating to me. So
Yeah,
I look
isn't it? Once you start thinking about yawns, you will not stop thinking about yawns.
But I'm not just fascinated about that, but we know what I'm fascinated about is the desperation that AI certainly wants to know. It wants to know. It's like, and it wants to make you think that it's knowable. It wants you to make sure that this is, So it's like,
and you want to know what isn't prudent? That. That is not prudent. AI is not prudent for any number of reasons to know a known unknown.
you know what I'm asking it now is I'm saying, so it's giving me its thoughts. I'm like, well, what do you think it is? Oh gosh. So here's the thing. What do you think I mean, you've probably done the research, right? You looked into a little bit of it.
Yeah,
What's the leading theory? What's the leading theory?
Carbon dioxide.
Brain cooling actually is the leading theory, according to.
Is it?
According to both GPT but there is. So, oh my goodness. So this is interesting because I asked it literally, what do you think it is? So as soon as you do this, so this is where I love to nerd out, because as soon as I do that, it humanizes it to a degree. It creates a sentience around it for sure. So this is what Claude said. Honestly, the brain cooling hypothesis feels the most convincing to me. It has the most experimental support and explains the timing well. Why you yawn more when transitioning between sleep states or in warm rooms. Here's the next thing.
Does not explain this contagion.
Does not. And but I'm going to get to that. Here's what it says. But the social contagion piece is what I find most interesting, because it suggests that yawning isn't purely physiological. There's something genuinely communicative happening. Now, what I find fascinating about that more than anything else is when it says the social contagion piece is what I find interesting. So and now that's what Claude said. ChatGPT
it pretends to be sentient.
ChatGPT says, I think yawning is probably one of those behaviors where evolution found a multi-tool rather than a single-purpose feature. So it's like I'm hedging my bets.
Ooh, but I love that. I love that idea.
It's doing what you literally said.
It's completely hallucinating it, but it's great. It sounds
it's
so good.
It's like, this is what I think. And here's the next paragraph. If I had to bet on the core function, I'd lean toward the brain state transition idea, with cooling as part of the mechanism. So it's like a yawn feels less like I need oxygen and more like my nervous system is changing modes. So it is literally, so to your point, this is the interesting thing, is that the deeper you go with these unknowns, the more it still tries, depending on what you ask, the more it still tries.
Or how you ask.
Or how you ask it. Or what information it has about you that it knows you like to hear.
Yes, exactly.
The more convincing. So, and here's to get even more nerdy about this, I walk away from this conversation knowing more about yawning than I did before.
That is correct.
But there can be a predisposition to go, well, it's brain cooling. Like your brain, and this is where they start talking about AI causing problems with the mind, right? Because not unlike social media, not unlike any of these other tools where you're reading them going, oh, well, I watch this news, so therefore this is the reality. This is what's really happening. Or I watch this. So if you're doing this, it's going to, unless you can apply that. And again, prudence matters here to go, okay, both of these AI functionalities said that it believes it's probably related to transitioning, and that okay, but there's still no proven, like, it still doesn't know. So
And it also doesn't explain several other components about yawning, right?
exactly,
You know,
exactly.
and that remain a mystery.
Well,
And
it
it
you
goes to my greater
sure,
well, go
sure,
ahead.
sure. No, but it also, I mean, you could argue that the same thing applies with, and I've asked, I mean, I've gone into this, like the whole idea of why are there night owls versus early risers? There's
Mhm,
no, it's still emerging as to why there are
mhm.
certain people that, why are there certain people can only get six
Well,
hours
and
sleep and are functional versus those that have 8 hours. There's lots of that.
right. And why does it switch at certain periods of life? Because the truth of the matter is that I'm no longer a night owl. I hate to break that to you.
Well, you
I'm
no,
sorry. I know we
except
built a whole brand around that,
no.
but
Okay,
no,
so
no, no.
here's
Here,
my question.
but
Actually,
but
I have a question
yeah,
about that. So
yeah,
you don't stay up late anymore, correct?
no.
Do you get up
Mm-mm.
early though?
My body automatically, no matter whether I set an alarm or not, has been waking up at 6:15 a.m. every single morning.
When does your brain wake up? That's probably a
Uh,
bigger question,
oh,
right?
yeah, I think I'm probably beginning that wake up cycle probably about a half hour before that, so about 5:45
Okay, okay.
is when I'm beginning that wake up cycle, and then what's generally happening is I have an alarm set to go
Hmm.
off at 6:15, or at least I did when Beatrix needed to get to school at a certain time and I was taking her,
Hmm.
um, that I had an alarm at 6:15, and oftentimes I would wake up and shut off the alarm before the alarm went off.
Yeah,
In
yeah, I've
other
done that.
words, to
Yeah.
keep it from waking up my wife.
Hmm.
So a lot of times I was popping up at about 6:13, 6:14 a.m. and shutting it off because I just knew my body knew, "Oh, it's time."
The reason I asked that question is because, and there is some studies around this, is that, and I've talked to Dr. Michael Bruce about it and others, where what happens with night owls is they can't stay up as late, but they don't really wake up fully any earlier. So they can get up at like
Mm,
6 or 7. And that's what, so for example, I'm not staying up as late anymore either. I just can't function. Like I just start to, and it's like, that's weird. It never used to be this way. But as we get
mhm.
older, our circadian rhythms
Yep,
do change.
do
But
change, yeah.
but the tricky part for night owls, and again, this is still like circadian science is still very much emerging, is they find that night owls, even though they go to bed earlier, they're still not as alert as early risers or diurnal people because their body clock is still, all their waking time is just truncated. It's not like they're
No.
still, so I
Yeah,
if I get up
but
at so again, it's very loose, but they're saying that, so you'd hope that, oh, I'm in bed by 11 now, like so I will naturally wake up at 7. Yes, maybe, but your brain may not be able to do that deeper work early, despite the fact that you are now shifted to that degree. There's still a lot
yeah.
of, again, it'd be interesting to kind of dive into the research around it because there's still a lot of, as you point out, unknown knowns and known unknowns around it. But I'm
Mhm,
finding, and that's what's interesting about night owls in general, I think, is that
mhm,
they will go to bed earlier, whereas early
mhm.
risers typically don't. They don't. That shift isn't as dramatic, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah,
But back to
yeah,
what you were
yeah.
sharing. I mean, we could go
Well,
down that rabbit
yeah.
hole
Oh,
in a big
yeah,
way.
yeah. Well, but, here's, and I think I've lost my track here, but I'll try to find it as I jabber on. No, but, so yes, not not a night owl anymore. Um, but uh yeah, I've completely lost the track,
That's
sorry.
okay. That's okay.
But
Well, I mean,
here's something I do. Here's
yeah.
something I do that's prudent, right?
Hmm.
And maybe this speaks to what you were just speaking about. I'd really have to think about it and figure it out because there are days like today where, I got up, kind of normalish time. I did my morning routine. I make the coffee. I let the dogs out. I take my medicine. I feed the dogs. Give the dogs their medicine and, all of like all the things, right? I kind of have a routine.
That
And then
helps.
after it does help.
That helps.
But then, you know, it just so happened that today, post routine, Beatrix had somewhere to be. at by 9, so left out about 8:30 or so.
Mhm.
Um, after brushing my teeth, getting dressed, the whole 9 yards. Um, and then, as we discussed, I think before you started recording, I was, doing some landscaping work, basically. We've got a irrigation system,
Mhm.
at one of our properties, and it was in need of some repairs, and so I had to do some chasing down of those repairs and doing them and whatnot. But yeah, no, I was super busy and productive kind of right away in the morning and right through till our call here. In
Mhm.
fact, when you first texted me just to check and make sure I was going to be on time, I was actually, had just left, or was about to leave my, the other place and grab Beatrix and get her back here. In any case, I digress.
Mhm.
The bottom line is,
Sure.
is that I really should check and kind of see, like, what is my kind of productiveness rhythm, as it were, these days. Because that has changed. I know for sure it's obviously not at night anymore, where I used to be like, 10 o'clock would hit
Mhm.
and I would feel my creative juices just beginning to flow. And by 11 p.m., that geyser was bursting,
Yep.
and it was chugging along till 1 a.m., sometimes 2. And I was raring, and I was so productive, and I got so much stuff done. It was wonderful, and I really miss those days because now 10 o'clock hits and I'm like, "Oh my god, I need a bed so
Yep.
bad, so fast. I don't know if I can even make it up the stairs to get to it," right?
So do you do
Um,
you do you have an evening routine still or no?
well, yeah, okay. There are things I do at night that are prudent
I was
for my
glad you brought that up because
success,
this is all prudent related for sure.
for the next day. Number 1, I always lay out my clothes the night before. So I make that, "What am I gonna wear tomorrow?" choice. I do that before I go to bed. That is
Mhm.
part of my evening routine.
As do
Um,
I.
and that also, involves, like, thinking through the next day. Like, I knew today that I was gonna be over basically kneeling down in dirt and getting, my hands deep in water and other mud
Mhm.
and, doing stuff. So, I laid out clothes accordingly. But I also know that I've got to change for tonight. This is the opening night for my daughter's final high school musical. I'll try not to cry. They're doing The Music Man, by the way, which I loathe, but here we are. Um, there's trouble in River City
There is
after all.
always trouble in River City, but no monorail, so there's that.
Yep, the no monorail. And but yeah. So, I actually laid out 2 outfits last night because I wanted to make sure I chose whatever it was I was going to change into
Mhm.
after I change out of these dirty clothes later on this afternoon. Um, yeah, so I do that. Obviously, brush the teeth. Obviously, there's a, nighttime, like, I have a place where I put my wallet and a place where I put my keys, and strangely enough, my shoes and socks, I always keep downstairs, by the
Mhm.
door, right? And so I have this whole routine of, like, yeah, I choose my outfit, and I really have considered actually moving where my socks live and moving my socks downstairs into the hallway, the closet,
Mhm.
because, uh, right now I take out the socks and I bring them back downstairs and I
Yeah.
put them in the shoes and then I roll up upstairs, right? But, and obviously there's the setting of the alarm, there's reading, there's, like, so yeah, there is a bedtime kind of ritual, things I always do, to prepare before I finally turn off the light and lay down and go to sleep.
the reason that I asked that is because, and I don't care if you're an early riser or not, or a night owl or whatever, doing what you just did is smart, because if you're a night owl, to me, and not just to me, but you are awake enough to make better choices than you would first thing in the morning. Plus, you'll be rushing around, right? So you're like, okay, well, like you said, I'm going to do this and this and this. I mean, I do the same thing. There's some people who, especially if someone has to commute early in the morning or whatever, it's like set up the coffee the night before, like get all that stuff done so that you can hit the ground running, whether you're a night owl or an early riser, because night owls work off momentum so why I'm curious, what's interesting about
Prudence.
Well, yeah, what's interesting about what you said is, you had your routine, and then something shifted. You had to drive Beatrix, right, somewhere, which I had to do today actually as well. I was doing my morning session, and then my wife texted me. She goes, "Oh, the rain's really bad. Can you drive me downtown?" Now, which takes me out of my rhythm, right? But because I have so many other things set up, that deviation doesn't throw me off as much, so I can still do it. In fact, she could have said, "Hey, she actually." Speaking of Prudence, she's like, "I'm going to be late because I'm not biking, and because the weather's terrible." And so she texted she took care of all that. If she had asked me, like, could you go early, I would have been able to, because we have people that are in the co-working community, but she exhibited prudence not knowing what that would look like. Like, Mike's got a commitment in the morning, so whatever. But the reason I bring this up is because I would be far more suitable in the morning to do what you were doing, which is landscaping, working with my hands, get the things that I know what to do. Like I said, before we hit record, I was upstairs doing dinner prep. It was prudent. Why? Marinating salmon, the longer you marinate it, the better. So let's do that when my brain doesn't need it. And guess what? I've got a recipe. I'm going through the thing, right? And so by the time we're done conversing today, I'm making that shift into, okay, now my brain, and that's again, speaking of known unknowns, like our brains are weird and wild and crazy in that regard. It's like, okay, you've created this neural pathway that your brain will naturally follow. Oh, okay, well, it's after lunch now. This is my creative time. I'm going to make sure I protect that, like we've talked about. Again, prudence is showing up even when we don't, necessarily call to it. But what's interesting about it is, and because I was asking, like, why in the world, why don't we use the word prudence as much anymore? And we brought up a couple of things already. It fell out of fashion. And again, this is kind of just, cursory basic research, going back to AI for a second here, just to get a sense of it. And this all makes sense to me. It got moralized. You brought that up, right? For a long time, it was one of those cardinal virtues. And so the religious and philosophical weight made it sound preachy, right?
Yeah.
Which I totally get.
The same thing with temperance, right? Same thing with, all of those cardinal virtues, right?
It got gendered and then aged out. So because it was a common woman's name in the 19th century, and so when, the idea, and so John Lennon, and you've read Productiveness, so I make a play on this. Like John Lennon, when he wrote Dear Prudence, basically he was playing on the fact that this term, this name, Prudence, is no longer a popular name being used, because by the time in the 60s, it was already going out of fashion. Right?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Sure. Yeah.
Speed culture replaced it. So prudence is inherently unhurried, right? And that is because it requires space and time.
As we say in rigging all the time, that slow is smooth and smooth is
fast. Yep.
Right. And so it's counterintuitive because, for instance, you have exactly 2 minutes to set up the flying net while this other thing is going on, to distract the audience from the fact that you've got, a dozen riggers on the floor putting up a net.
Yeah.
And you have 2 minutes. the truth of the matter is that you will burn up all of those 2 minutes and then some if you freak out about the fact that you only have 2 minutes to set up the flying net.
Yeah.
If you if you are prudent and you plan it and you discuss it and you know that there is an order to setting it up, and you figure out, okay, who's doing this? Okay, you guys, great. Who's doing that? You guys, perfect. Blah, blah, blah. Okay, now we need you guys to do this and call say done, or say set, do this next thing, set, right? Boom, 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 boom. Truth of the matter is that the spine net can be set up in under 1 minute, 30 seconds.
Yeah. Well,
But
yeah.
only if you do it smoothly
Mm-hmm.
and you do it methodically and you do it prudently and you are slow about it, right? And it turns out that the slower you go and the more prudent you are about it, and the more efficient you are about it, and thus the more fast it becomes.
Yeah. When I think about the term prudence in this context too, we live in the idea of being bold or disruptive goes against this idea of prudence, right? Like, I'm going to be bold, I'm going to be disruptive, I'm going to be, maybe decisive might not be a right term to use, but prudence, like, it can come off as hesitation or playing it safe.
Mm-hmm.
And the culture doesn't seem to want to reward that. You know what I mean? And by the way, I think that there are certain things where I don't think you can be bold if you don't have prudence in mind for a lot of other things you've got going on. It's like the difference between being, you can't be happy all the time, right? You can be content.
Right.
The content's like that middle, but people are like, I'm going to be happy or sad or miserable or ecstatic, right? Like, so I think the other thing is that prudence, that word, because it became there's these synonyms, right? So like intentional, strategic, thoughtful, tactical, and those things go right to in a lot of cases. Well, some are too soft, I think. Like, intentional for some people can be like, oh my gosh, it's that's too soft. But strategic or tactical can be too hard, right?
Yes.
They can be too.
Yeah.
And so prudent lives somewhere in the middle. But I think the middle part, that morality aspect of it, also gets it. So it's really interesting. It's the same thing where the term reason, which we've talked about before too, like, this is logical, this is too emotional. Reason, oh, well, that's why the term reasoned, this is a reasoned position versus a reasonable position. Reasonable is like, well, that makes sense. Reasoned is, they've taken some time and they've, you know what I mean? So it's reasonable is almost
they've given it some thought.
Yeah, reasonable almost sounds like, yeah, all right. Whereas reasoned is like, oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Or, as I often say, right? And I forget where I heard this verse. This is not original to me. It was a former boss. It was my former boss, Greg Dalen, who said, plan the work and work the plan.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
And that really, I think, is probably the shortest, best example of prudence I have, right? Because prudence is the planning of the work, right? It is the the foresight to plan ahead, and then if you do that, if you are prudent, then you just simply follow the steps and work the plan, and you end up in a better place.
Well, my hope after this conversation is that dear Prudence will in fact come out to play a little bit more often, at least visibly.
Yes.
We're going to talk next. Now, remember, we touched on the fact that we often plan these episodes in advance, but sometimes we make changes. I'm going to share what we've planned for next time, whether we work
That's
that plan or not. That's going to be a whole other situation. I think this is going to be a fascinating one, because this word is another word that is used in different contexts a lot more than the context that I think we're going to discuss, and it's tolerance.
Yeah.
So tolerance, for those that there is a lot of ground that we can cover with it, and we may cover a lot of that ground. But I love these conversations. And by the way, I want to thank those that have chimed in and said, hey, we love these PM Talks episodes. It's always awesome to just chat with Patrick and nerd out about this kind of stuff. So I'm glad that people enjoy listening to us do that.
Yeah,
Patrick,
agreed.
where can people pick up the stuff you've got going on and keep up with you, other than, obviously hearing about your home improvement rituals?
Oh my gosh, PatrickRhone.com is probably the best place. If you're in St. Paul, you can just come and find me at any of 4 properties throughout the summer, where I'll be prudently getting everything ready for the time to come, which is life without my daughter around.
Yeah,
And so there's that. That's weighing on me a lot, in fact.
I bet.
So
I bet.
tolerance. Yes, we will think about tolerance. I will think much about tolerance. We use tolerance, quite frequently, speaking of circus rigging, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Because carabiners, shackles, straps, ropes, all of these things, they have tolerances that we have to pay attention to.
And that's kind of the area that we're definitely going to go into. So, as for me, if you want to, especially no matter what time you're listening to this, but down the line, I'm going to explore prudence a lot more, because it is one of the principles of productiveness. And if you want to learn more about productiveness, go to mikevardy.com/productiveness. As of this recording, we are in the design phase of the book. So the book manuscript is locked. We are now at the point where they are going to design it. So by the time this episode comes out, the design should probably be locked, which means I'll be passing out advanced reader copies to people. And so if you go to mikevardy.com/productiveness, you'll get those updates. And if you're listening to this after the fact, when the book is out and such, I'm going to dive deeper into each of the principles, because the book, as you know, Patrick, is short, but there is so much more ground that I could go into with each principle.
Yeah.
And because, like we pointed out, we live with them both overtly and kind of in the background, that it's the background stuff will come up again and again and again. So there is no lack of material around all of these 9 principles. And if you've been paying attention, there's several of them that we've already discussed, and there's going to be several more. So I'm looking forward to it. Thanks again for joining me, Patrick. Really appreciate having a productive conversation.
It's always a good time. Yeah.
All right. Take care.